located. We are at 9633 3rd Street in the Orchard neighborhood. Next slide, please. So briefly today, I'd like to go over the site context, the design principles that we put in place to help inform this application, a brief planning rationale, the proposed layout, as well as our landscape plan, and then the specifics around the justification for the single proposed variance. And of course, we respectfully acknowledge that we're on the traditional territory of the WSÁNEĆ people. Perfect. So the property in question is mid-block between Orchard Avenue and Ocean Avenue. Currently, Ocean Avenue is quite a bit higher than Orchard Avenue, so the road does truncate with a residential pathway between it. As well, there's of course the access lane provided at the back. There's been recent development at 2477 Orchard Avenue. Therefore, the access lane does pull all the way back to the property line and basically stops right there. Currently, it's just a grassy area. So obviously, as part of this application, we would be providing the finished road base and asphalt to complete the access lane slightly further, which is a benefit, which means all of our vehicle and bike access is predominantly focused in the rear laneway. And we really wanted to create a nice, welcoming residential face for the front of the property, being that it is west facing onto 3rd Street. The lot size is a small lot, typical found in this neighborhood of 511 meters squared, or about 5,500 square feet. And of course, falls within the R1 intensive ground residential zone. And under the brand new fancy OCP, it is within the intensive neighborhood residential zoning or OCP designation. I will say on the zoning side, not a ton has changed specific to this site because we were doing the a 2-lot subdivision here, which we do have now an approved PLA for, with obviously conditions such as this development permit. Relevant development permit area policies within the OCP include public realm and open space, environmental sustainability, general form and character, as well intensive neighborhood residential. Yep. Perfect. So basically, these are not OCP guidelines, but these are the principles that I wanted to put kind of behind the application. So when initially looking at this property with Ms. Cumming and our landscape team, we wanted to kind of basically have some kind of key pillars that guided our application and how we came to come up with the design before you today. These have not changed throughout the process as we've taken kind of iterative changes based on the town of Sydney feedback and some of our neighborhood feedback as well. These include aging in place, placing the primary bedroom on the main floor, and utilizing the site topography to ensure that from the laneway to the front of the property, we're not making any massive grade changes, so that way there is a gentle slope and things can be handled with ramps as opposed to stairs wherever possible. Accessibility excellence, that means that we would be taking the typical Part 9 zoning bylaw in place and coming up with additional ways to look at things like the ensuite and the placement of the hallways, etc., and ensuring that we're going to what is more typical in the Part 3 multifamily building standard here in the town of Sydney, and elevating that so that it is something that somebody could downsize into. Soaking in the sun, basically using the west-facing orientation at the ground level to create a really nice feature that basically promotes and celebrates the fact that we do have the street frontage there, adding some higher ceilings and taking advantage of that solar exposure, as is stated, is a laudable objective within the design guidelines of the OCP. And finally, providing laneway access. And of course, as I mentioned before, ensuring that we focus the design so that the pedestrian access is from 3rd Street, but all vehicular and cycling access is supported and encouraged through the laneway. So as mentioned, the 4 key design guideline areas where I've kind of just highlighted some of the items that are also mentioned in the staff report is public realm and open space. As you could see kind of in my initial rendering, and we'll address later in the site plan, ensuring that there really is an inviting interface between the outdoor living space that we've created along 3rd Street, creating a well-lit, downlit, and accessible pathway along the side of the house that takes you to the front entryway, and really creating a positive, engaging interface between that public-private engagement along the street. Environmental sustainability, obviously, again, using the solar orientation of the homes, ensuring that we're providing an electric heat pump, no natural gas, and building to step 3 of the BC envelope code are all key features within the environmental sustainability profile of this home. General form and character, it's no secret. Zoning bylaws changed. We could go up to 3 stories here under the new zoning bylaw. Similar to my Orchard Avenue application you saw a couple months back, we felt that 2 is more fitting within this area. And while the floodplain construction was one piece of justification for the grade changes that you'll see here, the other thing that we did was by doing 2 single-family small lot homes and not using 2 duplex homes or 1 large single-family home, which we could have built on this property. We use the 2 homes effectively as pads to step down from north, which is extremely high, as you'll see in the elevation, the property to the north of us, to the southern property that is quite low. So we use these homes to kind of create a gentle transition, which I'll talk about later. As well with form and character, while the site plans for efficiencies and layout say are similar, what we did was we used kind of different colors and building envelope elements, as well as roof line adjustments, to create a bit of a dynamic pattern in the streetscape and not make sure it wasn't monotonous and the same design repeated twice. And then as well with intensive neighborhood residential, again, it's all about creating that playfulness between outdoor and indoor space, and ensuring that there is privacy for the residents and your neighbors, while also ensuring that there is high quality living space and for the future residents. So go to the next plan. So again, you can see very narrow lots here. It was asked of me at Sydney Council when this initially came forward at Committee of the Whole, why not do more units? You can see here, due to the narrowness of the lot along the laneway, I would not be able to do more units here without a significant parking variance to basically sandwich in those stalls. As I learned begrudgingly on my 5th Street application, we don't love parking layout variances. So I think that the 2 units make sense for this property, being that we do have some site constraints here. You can also see that we are working diligently to apply servicing while salvaging the 2 Cedar Boulevard trees, and also adding a number of trees to the site. If you've been to the site, you'll notice the only trees of significance are the cedar trees on the one corner. The remainder of the site is completely vacant at this point. So what we're doing here with landscaping is creating a greener and more significant urban tree canopy, while also providing the housing here at the ground level. You can go to the next slide here. So here's a typical ground level floor plan. I'm just doing one of these because they are effectively the same for each lot. You can see we have our master bedroom, or primary bedroom, that's the new term, on the rear of the property. We would have a sliding glass door there to let in light. It would be off-centered from the garage in order to ensure that both there, when vehicles and people are coming in, there still is light, sun exposure on that eastern side to get in that morning sunlight. As well, it creates a clear access along the side of the house to the side entryway. So whether you're coming from the back of the yard or you're coming from 3rd Street, there is a clear and well delineated, well lit access way. And then you can see we have an ensuite, a small powder room off of the foyer, as well the living space, and then everything beyond here is a open 11-foot high ceiling. So we are taking advantage of that western sun exposure. We have the hot water tank on that floor, and then a set of stairs going up to the 2nd floor, and the 2nd floor is a more modest footprint. We do know that in order to fit the primary bedroom and living space on that main floor, we are creating a fairly larger footprint for the building envelope. So on the 2nd level, we didn't want to be wasteful and build where we didn't need to. So we have 2 bedrooms up there, 1 bathroom, as well as a laundry room. The other thing I'll point out here is that because flexibility was something that we wanted to bake into this plan, in the event that somebody purchasing this would prefer having the primary bedroom on the main floor be a family room and then 3 bedrooms above, like a family, for instance, you could wall in this flex area and use that as a 3rd bedroom. So it could become a 4-bedroom home or could become a 3-bedroom up home if you so wanted to, in order to kind of create that family space, because I really wanted to make sure the design wasn't exclusive to a family wanting to purchase it as well. And I didn't want it to be 100% senior or accessible focused if there was that need for that diversity. Next slide, please. So here you can see the elevation with the layout, and I think that this slide is really important because not only does it show the dashed crawl space area here that's necessary for the geotechnical recommendations on the floodplain construction levels, it also shows, again, that point I was making about the homes being a gentle transition between the different contexts within the neighborhood. You have a house that's sitting lower, still quite a tall house, but a house that's sitting lower to the south of us. And then you have this house that was built about 12 years ago now, sitting quite proud of us. And so we use the grade to not only ensure that we're not putting massive stairways in along the site, but also to ensure that we're kind of creating that gentle transition while not just managing the laneway stormwater, but obviously also managing our own stormwater on site and not creating any negative spillover to the neighbors. As well, as I mentioned before, you can see that we're kind of picking up on typical roof lines that you see in the neighborhood and creating a playful design that's, again, different enough that it won't feel like one large house with a skinny setback in between, and using some interesting play with roof lines and finishings there. Next slide, please. This is the question of the hour, the rear accessory building variance. You can see here again, we're playing with the materiality in the roof line from the main building. I did think it was more laudable just from a kind of creating porosity, creating open space to create a separate shed as opposed to something that's built into the building envelope. And as you can see here, garage. And as you can see here, it's a relatively modest size, but we did want to make sure gardening equipment, bikes, and everything else could be stored here. And so I thought that from just a tidiness standpoint, but also from a vehicle management standpoint would be laudable for this application. And the next slide is the landscape plan. So again, going through our landscape plan here, just some kind of like elemental highlights of what we're looking at. We'd be replacing all of the fencing around the property and between the two properties with a cedar hedge. We'd be having some high quality pavers throughout the site. With some downlighting as well that would clearly delineate visibly the access to the entryway as it is on the side of the house. We have some more permeable pavers to get around the other side of the house, the non-entryway side, just ensuring that we're working to maximize the permeability of the site where possible. We did want it to be low maintenance, so I did say to the landscape architect, I don't want any grass of the lawn type as opposed to more ornamental grasses. And then, of course, some trees throughout. As well, we have a little cedar hedge along the front there to again create that public-private interface and a nice covered patio area over the living space. Next slide, please. So key reasons for the variance. A couple things. One, it was characterized at the last meeting that variances are only required during hardship. I don't think that's true. Variances are a planning tool that are used daily on applications to ensure that things can be manageable within the context of infill housing. A number of reasons why I think it's important to have a variance here and not just do slab on grade rear laneway parking. Number one is we have maintained the building height. Obviously, skinnier 3-story buildings may not be as desirable in this neighborhood. We may have been able to go up to 3 stories and punch a garage in the building envelope, but ultimately we feel that the 2-story layout is more laudable and more in keeping with the rhythm of this existing neighborhood. Detached garage. It also, again, like I mentioned, we didn't put a causeway or any kind of a connection to the house. We wanted to create that breathability between the home and the rear laneway and primary bedroom to let more light in and create more of a breakup between the neighbors. Provides covered bike storage, landscaping storage, as well vehicle storage from 3rd Street. As well, we had also looked at the fact that because the house is, it's a smaller layout as far as any kind of other storage, this is really a key location for that, and the garage would provide that area as opposed to having accessory buildings, sheds, etc., what you see typically after a project built into the house. As well, I know obviously electric vehicles is a major push for the town of Sydney. It's something that we're all working towards within the Capital Regional District. having covered temperature controlled vehicle storage with your EV chargers is essential. We're seeing this in other municipalities as well, where houses with carports or at-grade parking will typically be coming in for permits after the fact to enclose them to ensure the longevity of their electric vehicle. So effectively, if we're going to encourage level 2 charging in homes such as these, I think that the right thing to do is to include secure temperature controlled storage so that the vehicles actually can be utilized to their fullest potential. So those are my I feel like Letterman with the like 5 reasons why, but like anyway, these are the reasons why I think that the variance is justifiable. And that's it for my presentation, and I'm available with any questions.
Okay, questions from members of the committee?
I have a question. With the primary bedroom being on the main floor and laundry being on a second floor, is there flexibility to?
I'm glad you asked. Yes, so what we did is I have a like we did do a deep kind of walk-in closet within the primary bedroom, and then my plan there was basically just to include plumbing for a stacker washer dryer to exist in there, and then we could obviously kind of fixture in some like closet that would make it easy to bang that in and out if somebody wanted to. So yes, it would be very easy customization for somebody to, instead of having their washer dryer upstairs, they could neatly put it along the main floor and have that be done, because I didn't think that issue would come up.
If someone's buying it that planning on using primary bedroom on the main floor.
It defeats the purpose. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
They could also have both, right? Like,
You could. Yeah.
so if you got kids
Read
upstairs.
that small.
Yeah, which I've seen before in some new houses. So yeah, it would provide the flexibility for both. Or maybe the upstairs becomes another bathroom or whatever else. Yeah.
Yes,
Just had a question about the crawl space in the flood zone. Did you, I assume then that the crawl space is providing for ducting for the heat pump for ventilation and heating?
That would be my assumption. We would probably take advantage of that for the at least the main floor ducting, and then typically we would have a like I would imagine a house like this, we would have a mini split, and so there'd be a secondary unit that would be above one of the closets in the second floor to move air on the like through the attic as well.
Right. So if there were a flood and the perimeter tiles are inundated and that there's water actually in the crawl space, was there provisions within your engineering report for lifting up the air handling unit up against the underside of the floor joists so that you're not actually creating loss of, you can deal.
Yeah, you don't want to lose the infrastructure.
Yes.
Yeah, HVAC. So, okay.
I'll go up to you.
We're not quite there yet in the detail of our design. However, what I would say is that it like typically what we would do is the HVAC would be running those ducts through the joists of the floor anyway, so that the unit itself is above grade, right? And then it is just the ducting that would be going through there, so there wouldn't physically be any air handling apparatus that would actually be within the bottom 3 feet of the crawl space effectively.
Okay.
I
Thank
could
you.
speak to that from a staff perspective. So at the time of a building permit application, the building inspectors would be looking for the systems in the building to be designed and compliant to the engineer's report about flood hazard. And if that report made recommendations that all the electrical and mechanical systems had to be above the recommended minimum flood elevation, then that's what the building inspector would be looking for in the drawings. So it'd have to be designed to meet those engineers' requirements.
So maybe there's a question to staff, because I really don't necessarily understand the preliminary flood level versus the engineering reports that are coming in quite significantly below that preliminary flood level. How was the preliminary flood level set? And why are there so many provisions now for 2 meters below that level.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the Association of Engineers and Geoscientists of BC sets out practice standards for their professionals to do these reports. They have to look at a number of sources of information to come up with a recommended minimum floor elevation for areas and like low-lying areas like this. And then that professional engineer that's preparing the report reviews the building, the development permit plans in this case, to see what's proposed and assesses the hazard in this specific building and makes their professional determination about whether this is still safe for the use intended or not, and says any recommendations about specific construction methods that would increase the safety of the building. So there's an accepted protocol about communications between local governments and engineers and geoscientists of BC about the way that we can review their reports and comments on the reports. So as staff, we have to follow that process. So sometimes it might seem like, why is this house so low? This doesn't make sense, but they are the professionals and they're giving us their professional recommendations. So if they're certifying that it's safe, then as staff, I mean, we can request a peer review from a different engineer, but we're as local government staff, we're not in a position to critique
Yeah.
their work in that regard.
Mm.
So this engineer has certified that this would be safe for the use intended.
But is the flood, the preliminary flood level, is that set based on stormwater and inundation of the existing municipal infrastructure?
So
Or
it's,
is it
yeah.
set based on a tsunami risk?
so they look at a number of things. Feel free to jump in about what they're looking at. They're looking at expected sea level rise, wave run up, like higher high tide, a number of issues that they're adding up and averaging it out. And then they come up with a number. So there's a number of studies and research that they review as they're coming up with this number.
And that was the 5 meters.
No, the 5 meters is in the town's policy. It's kind of a general standard that if your property, that natural elevation of the property or where the building is going to go is below 5 meters, then we need to see a report that assesses the hazard.
So the 5 meters is not based on
It doesn't
all
say,
this run
no.
up and. okay.
no,
Well,
it
that's
just
what
says,
my-
okay,
It's a threshold for evaluation.
Yeah.
Okay,
if you're
that's
below that,
my-
we need a report to say what is the right number for this property.
That's where I'm
If I can-
confused.
So just.
Okay, are
Are
you
you
finished?
related to this?
Yeah, related to this
Okay.
as well. So what I'm wondering, and what I'm always wondering in all of these, is what is the flood control level that was set for this property?
I don't have the number offhand. No, the report was reviewed by staff.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
generally speaking, it's between 4 and 5 meters.
It varies. It depends on that engineer's assessment of the property and its distance from the coastline, its height, the amount of structures and elevation between the property and the water, the wave runoff,
Because,
all kinds of
I mean,
things.
one of the reasons we're seeing the elevations that we see along the street level, right? Is that property that's to the north was built at a time when somebody said, oh, this is where you should build for flood control for this property. And then, of course, this building to the south is a really much older building, which is built below the level. And you're caught in between with your two properties here. The engineering reports that we've seen in the past as well, I just wanted to make a general comment, and I'm not an engineer, but the reports that we've seen in the past basically said things like, okay, the property is below the flood control level. However, all of the servicing is high enough or will be cut off, so nobody will be electrocuted, you know, those kinds of things. But even though there are engineering reports, it may well mean that these two properties are below the flood control level. But in fact, the engineers have basically certified that not to worry, things will be cut off if there's an issue. But the main floors may still be underwater. So I'm asking, what was the level that was determined? Because I'm interested when I vote, whether or not these main floors are going to be underwater in the event of a large flood. issue. So did anyone know?
There's no answer here.
Well, there,
I think it's written on that page. It might be hard to read though at this. Remember if it's on that page. really.
well, it's not included in the staff report. It just says what the relatively low natural
No.
grade is of the property for now.
Yeah,
Because as I said, the report's been reviewed by engineering staff
Yeah.
and by our building inspector. So it's an operational step. It's not, I mean, it has to do with the form and character of this site and how it compares to the design guidelines in terms of how far the building is out of the ground here.
Yeah.
I think the letter of rationale talked about that they wanted to raise the grade here to get better access into the site and not have to have stairs. So that's the
Yeah.
element of the form and character that's coming to APC for review. I mean, not in terms of how well the professional engineer has assessed the flood hazard.
yeah.
So that
And I-
part is done by staff, but always open to your comments on that too. Yeah.
And I'm only, you know what I'm concerned about in all of this is that when we've seen those letters in the past, basically what happens is the level is set at this level, and I think the level is probably higher than the main floors here. And that basically all of the services and so on will be cut off and non-operational if the water comes in. My concern, and the other part of it that's always talked about in all of this is that there's a covenant on the title making new owners aware that indeed there could be a flood issue on this property in the future. My concern is that we've known about this, and I've sat on the Advisory Planning Commission for almost 6 years now. And I do not support building new properties, new structures in town that are, where the main floor is below the flood level. Because the person that's gonna lose, and this is gonna happen at some point in the future, is gonna be the homeowner. And I think everything in town, since we know about these flood control levels, should be pulled above the flood control level. And I know that to a certain extent, that affects the form and character and how the buildings relate to the buildings on either side of them and all of that. But just as a principle, as a person and a human being, I think that main floor elevation should not be built below flood control levels.
Okay,
I just, if you'd like to recommend that I consider raising the
Yeah.
main floor higher to
And that's,
better get in line, we can entertain it.
you know what, Neil, I really appreciate, I'm looking at your properties and I know I looked at the past ones as well. I appreciate the small scale of them. I appreciate everything you guys have done with the design, but I really would like to see that we don't continue to build things below those flood control levels and put, like, these buildings are supposed to be here for the next 50 to 100 years. And I don't want to put the people that buy them into that kind of position.
We also need to keep accessibility in consideration when you raise
Yeah,
floor elevations. You change
Absolutely.
people's accessibility to
Yeah.
buildings.
that's a question of liability too, who's liable? The engineering reports.
well,
It may be 50 years, the engineering company may not even be around. Anyway, go ahead.
In regards to the flood levels, after our last meeting, I talked to I did a bunch of learning. And a lot of what the flood levels have to do with is not necessarily where the water is going to come up to, where the building is gonna flood. But if the water comes up to certain levels, will the ground that the building on remain stable? So when an engineer is saying that it is okay
Yeah.
to do this, in a lot of these cases, buildings are very unlikely to flood, but it's more to do with the structural integrity of what they're building on. So it doesn't necessarily mean that, you're gonna have water there. It just means if you have water up to a certain point, is this house gonna start sinking or?
yeah, but when a certain point is above the main floor level, that's an issue. Right?
But the elevation levels and the flood construction levels, you would act, the water in a lot of these cases would have to be a lot higher before we actually got into the building. And, the level they've set to, just because it's below that level, doesn't mean that the building's gonna flood. It just means that they need to look and make sure the ground is stable. And can be stable up to excessive amounts of, storm surges and whatnot.
Seems to me that a stronger explanation is needed for both the APC and for council as to exactly all the ramifications. Because that is an interesting point. In other words, if the water doesn't actually come into there, but if it has to do with the stability of the area, those are two different issues.
So the town is doing a sea level rise project right now, so it is something that's being looked into, and that could lead to an update to the policy that we have or to the development of a bylaw in the future. So we've been working through the research phase of that. And so there will be more on that. So it's an ongoing project. But in terms of what you're saying about requiring all buildings to be built above the recommended minimum floor elevation, that's a bigger discussion between local governments and the engineers and geoscientists at BC, like that, those two professional, like the local governments, and then that professional body of engineers and geoscientists about the reports and how that whole system works. So I'm not sure what the next step with that would be, but the town is doing this project on sea level rise and flood hazard. So I expect more will come out of that.
It's also not one of the issues in non-compliance with this.
And with this
particular
development permit,
submissions.
yeah.
Okay,
Could I ask one further question? Just, and not to do with flood levels. Just about the front and the rear yards. So I noticed actually that, you actually have quite a bit of, extra area in the front yard. And you're looking for the variance in the backyard. And I'm just wondering, whether you considered kind of sliding the building forward, or what was the reason for going for that variance in the rear yard?
So the variance itself is not for setback area, it's for lot coverage in the back, so
Right.
changing the siting of the home would not have any
Oh.
impact on the variance. That said, I think to answer your question, it's a large boulevard, not setback necessarily in the front.
Yeah.
And again, I think what it comes down to is in addition to the fact that I think the way we have the front yard setback right now, it fits really nicely with kind of the rhythm of the existing houses on the street, so that we're not kind of encroaching or overpowering. It also means that we're able to use that and create that, if you see that on the elevation or the site plan there, a additional living space off of the entry space or off of the living room space to create a nice west facing, because it is a dead end street, and take advantage of that exposure. In the back, just to speak to the variance, we did look at that in the siting of it, but ultimately, we felt that a modest garage with storage and vehicle storage was, again, it's been done a number of times in the Orchard neighborhood, and we just felt that it was a better option than raising the height of the building. Because that is the east side, and we weren't really negatively impacting a neighbor at that point.
I
okay.
have a new question. Where you step out of the garages, so obviously there's the elevation change starts. So then inside that door would be a step.
Yeah.
But then when you step out, are you indeed stepping out of that door down onto a slope?
There would be a sill, but there's not, it's effectively just a step out of the garage to work with the play. Being we're trying to be accessible, you would, like, we still did have like a kind of like a ramped approach from the laneway. So if you
Yeah.
had to exit out of the garage door, the big garage door as opposed to the side door, you could, but
Yeah.
it's literally just to get up to the
Yeah,
raised grade.
so when you step out, in the picture, it looks like looks like the slope's like this and you're stepping out of a door like that, like you're stepping off, and it's like.
That might, Terry, do you have any?
It's just that I made that slope between the house and the lane a straight line. You definitely could level it off for 4 feet and then carry on so that you're stepping on.
So it's a little more fluid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll do our best. I mean, yeah, those are some of the things we can play with on site a little bit.
yeah, and the other question I had is, why no rooftop patio?
These are very narrow, and I think that while it would be a fun addition, and they have been done in the past, I just thought with only 11 meter wide or less than that lots. I just thought that overlook to both our future buyers and the neighbors would be a bit of a concern here. And there's also some new language in the new OCP on design guidelines around like stepping them in and ensuring, and so when you think about all the step-ins you'd have to have on every side, you'd have a pretty narrow space to actually hang out there by the time you design it properly under the guidelines.
It also takes up square footage to create stairs either on the exterior or internally.
Yeah, I thought about that, although with that flex area, there'd be a decent amount of room. Or, you know, a patio that was over top of the area on the front that steps down. Or over top of the garage.
Okay,
But I mean, that has nothing, yeah.
No, those are, we
That has
definitely, there were
nothing
things
to-
we
you know, I
considered,
love
it's
everything
just
that you have done.
trying to keep
That's
it simple. Thank you.
it's a design issue. Okay, any other comments?
I just have one question about the location of the proposed garages and I guess it does play into fee simple versus strata title. The current bylaw doesn't provide for zero lot line construction. But if it was strata title, you could put zero lot line of the garage. It wouldn't change the percentage of the rear yard. But you could bring it forward into the butt into the house. But it would just create a whole new play of yard space that could be utilized by the owners for, gardening and for the OCP talks about that setbacks were increased on multifamily and sort of small lot developments so that there could be more and larger tree cover and things. Right now, it's very constrained. You've done a great job at creating these locations for planting, but if there was the ability to go to zero lot line just on the garage, you'd have an extensive usable yard. Right now, the yard is all circulation space, and it constrains even the view from that master bedroom, and it would just seem to improve the quality of that development.
I know it's been done on other sites, like on Ocean Avenue in Sydney. I know it's another zoning bylaw though, but if that's something the APC would like us to consider, I can certainly work between Miss Cumming and Sydney staff and seriously look at that, because I think it's a good suggestion.
Okay, well, we can raise that when we go around table. Okay. No other comments? Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much for your time.
Then the next part of the meeting will be just we could do a roundtable quickly for comments and observations about this, and then we'll do some voting. So why don't we start? Todd, you start.
Yeah, we've just got the one variance for the rear yard lot coverage, right? If anything, I think the garage could be even bigger. I mean, I don't even know if I own a car that would fit in that garage, but my cars are kind of big, but still, I've got no problem with the variance. Like, the garage needs to be at least that big. I think it's a great design, it's really nice.
Okay. And supportive of the development permit?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Harold?
Yeah, likewise, I appreciate the design and the planning that went into the use of the sites, which are quite limited. And I also think the variance, if the variance is a small concession to give, I also prefer larger garages, so things are kept inside and around the garages and in the yards.
Okay, Eric, do you have any?
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
You're muted.
okay, can you hear me now?
No,
No?
Can't hear you.
Okay.
I'm wondering if that speaker in the center is working.
Is it wireless? Because it's not plugged in.
Hello?
So sound is coming through on my laptop. It's not coming through on that one. Go ahead, Eric.
Okay, yeah, generally I'm supportive of this this development. I think it's gonna be a nice addition to that neighborhood. And just if we wanted to speak to a recommendation in terms of height, we could always recommend that the team at Island View Land Management put the building up on stilts. But that would obviously affect its accessibility. But yeah, overall, I think it's a good design, and yeah, that's all I have to say.
I think it's a very thoughtfully designed proposal. And I'm in support of the development variance application.
There. Hold on.
Yeah, I think it's a great design, and I 100% in support of having a garage there. The coverage is still under the overall coverage, so I'm in support of this variance. And I just wanted to comment on Kim's suggestion about strata. I personally think that freehold title benefits ownership quite a bit more than the strata title. Strata comes with a lot of limitations, and unfortunately, people who purchase in strata titles, they not 100% always understand what they're getting into. Strata ownership is a different beast. So if we can get away with this and keep it in this freehold, I would be 100% in support of that versus a strata. Speaking just as a land surveyor,
Okay.
seeing a lot of issues with strata sometimes.
Kim?
I'm in support of the development. I have a personal dislike for flat roofs, and with the location of the adjacent gable roof, I suggest either a hip or a gable roof on part B. But just to improve the sense of movement through the site. I would still support either another variance to provide for zero lot line on the proposed garage and still provide for fee simple, or if it is simpler for legally and within the town's bylaws to provide for a single strata lot with zero lot line on the garages, then it just creates the much better quality of life for the homeowners. So I would promote that, and I support the project otherwise.
Okay.
Overall, I really like the look of this project. I really support and feel good about the fact that it's 2 stories and not 3. The variance in the backyard to allow the garages, I support that. I think it's an excellent suggestion on the part of Kim to relocate the garages in the backyard to make a better backyard setup. And I continue to be concerned about flood control levels. So I am not sure whether I will support this just because of my concern that this may be underwater. But overall, I think this is a great looking development.
Okay. And finally, just my own comments. I have nothing really to add to what everybody said. I do support it. I think the variance makes sense. I like Kim's idea of finding a way to get the garages moved so that there's more use of the backyard, however that may be. And I think we can make a note of that in the record of decision. It doesn't have to be part of our recommendations here. Okay, the other item, we come to vote on recommendations, and I guess there's no hard and fast rule about how we do this. So a thought I had, and this arises from our last meeting, when we spent a lot of time dealing with variances, and then the development permit itself was not approved, and therefore it seemed to me that we spent a lot of time talking about what would happen to this property, and then it became a moot point. And so it seems to me it makes some sense to just quickly establish that we support this, have a vote on whether we support the application for, how would I put it here? File number 9633 3rd Street. If members of the committee support that, then we can move to the staff recommendations, which I think are very helpful. The staff report, as usual, gives us a lot of good information. So that's my suggestion. If anybody wants to make that motion, whether to support the project at file number 9633 3rd Street.
So can I just clarify, if you take it a step further, hypothetically, if the commission didn't support in general terms the project, in this procedure you're suggesting, where would that take the discussion with respect to the specific recommendations next?
Well, the same place that would necessarily, we wouldn't be discussing them anymore, because that would mean that the APC would not be supportive of something.
Okay, so that's interesting. That's my concern with it, in that there's a number of elements here, and I'll just use this one as an example, where those recommendations are quite specific to the project that perhaps members of the APC might have further thoughts and comments on, be it either in terms of supporting some of them or making suggestions to improve the project. So I'm just a little leery, if you were to use this process that you're suggesting as a means to discontinue addressing the recommendations, that a lot of that input then doesn't carry forward through to council either. I'll just yield to Allison.
Just a thought following on Councillor Rintoul's comments there, that if the APC was to not vote in favor of a motion to see support or to see merit in these applications, I think it would be worth it to make following motions and vote on other recommendations about what should happen with this development permit and variance permit application. Because council is looking to receive comments from APC and recommendations. So just a defeated motion that to see merit in it doesn't mean redesign. It doesn't mean deny. It just means that you didn't see merit. So it doesn't really give any direction about a recommendation. So, and the same, if the APC does see merit in this application, then I would suggest considering the staff recommendations and kind of going through with those formal recommendations and voting on those, or making different motions and voting on those, so that again, there's more direction to council.
And I beg your pardon, in part as well too, not just to council, because I've referenced that as to Allison, but to the developer, in terms of what maybe this group thinks they should go away with and revisit. So I would encourage, that it's significant to go through and address them as they're identified in the recommendations from staff. So no problem with you leading off in that format, but don't let it be a dead end is what I'm saying, because that's problematic for what happens next.
Yeah, I understand that point. It was a bit of a strange one last time, when you're making variances, supporting variances for a project that did not pass the APC. Because, and there were big reasons for that. And that kind of got lost in the discussion too. But yeah, I understand the point. in this case, okay, let's simply, we can go through, I take general support around the table. I don't see anybody saying that they don't support it. So why don't we go to the recommendations from staff? And let me also point out that we'll go through them one at a time. Let me also point out if there are any other recommendations that members of the committee would like to add to that list, you're always free to add those recommendations. Okay, so to the report. The recommendations are, you want to go through. I'm willing to entertain the idea that we move them at one time. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Recommendation
Okay.
to be moved in its entirety.
Do we have, we don't have to read them really, do we?
As staff, we can read them out.
Okay.
Just to read it into the record or not, it's up to the committee.
Just read them out and
Yeah.
just speed them.
So
Then it's in the recording. too.
Yep. Okay. Go ahead,
Okay.
Celine.
Recommendation number 1, that owners and tenants in occupation of property within 75 meters or 246 feet of 9633 3rd Street be notified regarding development variance permit application number DV 100312 to relax the requirements for the size of an accessory building, and that any written correspondence received be forwarded to council at the time of consideration of approval of the variance. Number 2, that development permit application number DP 100827 to permit the form and character of 2 small lot single-family dwellings for the property at 9633 3rd Street be brought before council for consideration of approval if council authorizes the issuance of the development variance permit. Recommendation number 3, that as conditions of approval of development permit application number DP 100827, the property owner shall, prior to the issuance of building permit, A, address design guideline 25.3.19, the heat pump location to the satisfaction of the Director of Development Services. B, register a flood hazard covenant on the title of the property referencing the submitted engineer's report. C, install tree protection fencing around the drip line of all off-site trees to be retained to the satisfaction of the Town Parks Department to be kept in place until such time that all construction of the property is complete, and follow all recommendations in the arborist report prepared by D. Clark Arboriculture dated April 9th, 2024. And D, pay to the town a deposit in the amount of 115% of the estimated cost to complete the hard and soft landscaping for the development.
Okay, could I have a mover? Kim? Harold? Seconder, discussion. Discussion under? Oh, okay, yeah, Harold is the seconder. Okay, no. No discussion? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None. Carried unanimously. Thank you for your presentation, and
Thank you for bearing with me.
Yep.
Appreciate your time, Stan. Thanks, Tara.
and we'll very quickly do a record of decision. My notes on this are very sparse, because the comment that I would say is that there was universal support for the variance. The design met the approval of the members of the committee. Fit within the neighborhood, within the general context of the neighborhood. The question of the location of the garages, the variances were supported, but the question of location such that a feeling that more of the backyard could be utilized if the locations were somewhat altered. And I guess concern about the, am I going too fast here?
No, Ruth is taking the notes today for the
Okay.
record of decision.
And concern about the flood construction level, and that the committee members would like clear definitions of how the engineering reports determine whether something should be built the way it's built and how it's built and where the infrastructure is located in the where the services within the house are located within the crawl space and so forth.
I didn't get any of that.
Do you want to start again at the top of
Sorry,
the,
I'm having issues
top of the
with
list?
sharing the screen. Says I am, but it
It's
doesn't. look
sharing
like it.
now, yeah. See you there.
Am I now? Okay,
Yeah.
so all I got was concerned about flood level, flood construction level.
Yeah,
Back up a bit.
You want to start at the top of your list?
the top of the list.
Yeah. Go through it again.
Well, there was no problem with the variances. People were generally supportive of the design within the context of the neighborhood and how it fit within the neighborhood. The garage, is that in there? Garage location.
What about the garage
Okay.
location?
That there was some concern or some suggestion that perhaps the location of the garages could be changed to better utilize the backyard, the space and the open space in the backyard. I mean, the issue was that given the location, you've got basically nothing usable in the backyard because the yards are so narrow. Flood construction level, that's in there now too? Yeah. Any other?
My suggestion for a peaked or hip roof on
Okay.
on unit B rather than the flat roof.
Yeah,
Is that supported? I don't know.
If
It's an
that's,
observation of one individual. I don't know if
could
it's
say
shared.
one member suggested.
sure.
Yeah.
One member suggested that, how would you put this? That the unit to the south?
I would
The unit
argue,
B,
I would argue that this is not the part of
APC
record
review.
of
no, I
decision.
thought that it would be because it's form and character.
This form, yeah.
But that's not part of the decision. though.
No,
No.
But
This
this
is
is-
record of decision. In other words, these are comments that were made and
in the discussion.
in the discussion. It's not APC decision. These are comments generally made and not all members necessarily support them. That's how we've done this always. Okay,
Well, in that case, I said the garage should be even larger.
one member felt the garage should be larger.
I don't think we've always done this way. I think we came up with a record of decision that is kind of a majority of members suggesting, and I don't think we ever went into individual opinions.
Occasion.
No disrespect, but
I think that's my recollection as well. The idea was that if there was a consensus and discussion around something, that it was there to be shared with council. As I recall, Kim, I thought your comment was started off with, you're not really partial to flat roofs.
Right.
because I
Okay.
really like flat roofs myself.
Yeah,
You maintain them then.
and that's Alex's point in the record of
It's not a
decision. These are not
design,
these are not the ones that were everybody's view, and that's the point. That so the council gets some sense of the diversity of opinion.
Yeah, I just don't recall that we went into every individual opinion.
Okay, anything else? Okay, time to go to the second application.
So we'll take out the last bullet there.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, the second application is for a development permit and a development variance permit at 9895, 9899 7th Street. Selena, you would like to present?
Yes, Terrence. So this development involves the consolidation of two lots across from Sydney Elementary School. The proposal is for a 4-story multi-unit residential building with 21 units on the upper 3 stories. There's a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. The first story of the building is taken up largely by vehicle parking, as well as bicycle parking, garbage and recycling areas, electrical and mechanical rooms, and a main lobby. It does involve variances to the front and rear setbacks. as well as the maximum percentage of first story is able to be occupied by parking. It also involves a variance to the location of the 3-bedroom units and the distance exterior cladding can project from a building into the setback areas. The design uses architectural projections that connect into the building eaves to help articulate the building. It's overall generally consistent with the OCP and multi-unit residential guidelines. Again, the staff report highlights several of the design guidelines. And I think that's it.
Okay. Any questions from members of the committee about the content of the staff report or about issues raised in the staff report? Just clarification? Nope. Okay, proponent. Whom do we have?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rob Pringle. I'm the principal architect at Union Architecture, and we are the applicant on this. This is also a presentation. Just leave it to plug in first.
Oh, you're running out of power there. They're just some powers close. Presentation. I do. Sorry, just 1 minute here. Oh.
So, as Ms. Fletcher noted, this is in regards to 9895 and 9997. You just go to the next. So this is the second question. As noted, directly across the street from Sydney Elementary School, along 7th Street. Here we go, zoomed in a little bit more again, the school. Some context of the neighborhood itself. We've got the newer development up on the corner of Breath Hour and 7th, which is a 4-story condo unit. The site directly to our south is a newer townhouse development that does stretch all the way through, as well as the older 90s condominiums right on the property of the schoolyard as well, and then again the school itself. So the entire block is zoned RM7 for multifamily. So we are just the next in the line of development that's already taken place in the area. This is our proposed site plan. So as noted, we are utilizing the ground floor for the lobby, stairs, mechanical, electrical room, guard room, bike enclosures, all common spaces, no residential on the first floor itself, as well as the required parking for the development. We're not seeking a parking variance. In fact, we are actually exceeding the requirements for parking in this case. You'll note the setbacks. Again, we are requesting a front yard setback variance and a rear yard setback variance. The lines are shown for the required and proposed setbacks. We also have a good amount of landscaping all the way around the property itself. This is the typical floor plate. As mentioned, it's 21 units total. 7 units per floor plate and 3 residential floors on 2, 3, and 4. We have a mix of 2 bedrooms, 1 bedrooms, and 3 bedroom units. As noted, we're also seeking a variance for 3 bedroom locations. Bylaw specifies that it needs to be first and second floor. As mentioned, we don't have any residents on our first floor, and second floor would mostly be 3 beds. So we're requesting a variance to stack the 3 bedroom in the back corner. It just allows for efficiency during construction, plumbing stacks, and what have you. So it's just easier to build, much more efficient. As part of this, we are also including 5 adaptable 1-bedroom suites as required by bylaw. And as you can see, it's a very compact floor plate. We've utilized as much of it as possible. Trying to have big open living spaces, really usable rooms. All of the beds shown here are king size beds, so not small rooms for small beds, but actually usable spaces for the people in Sydney. Every unit also includes private outdoor space for balcony. And the fourth floor, as we'll get to the elevations, does have some vaulted areas for those top floor suites to just create more airiness and more spacious. Here we've got just an overall rendering of the property, looking down center. You'll note that we have a mixture of materials and colors throughout the design. I'll speak to the cladding projection variance right now. So we do have this kind of border around throughout the building. The eaves of the roofs are allowable projections in the setbacks, but the vertical connections connecting them are not. So this is why we've asked for the projection for the cladding. This is a view of the back. So this is the 3-bedroom stack. So 3-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 3-bedroom. You'll note that we've got landscaping all around the side, rear yard, as well as the parking below. And again, there's another view of the parking below. As noted in the report, we are seeking variance for the maximum area on the ground floor. Bylaw allows for 40%, we're around 62. Because we're such a compact site, again, we are meeting the parking requirements. We don't have a lot of area for the actual parking. Parking has set standards for the size, the stalls, back allows, what have you. But again, because we're such a compact site, we tried to hide everything within the building so that it could get screened from both the street as well as all the neighborhood fencing as well. And here we are back around the front again. And so we're trying to integrate the frontage into the streetscape itself with intensive landscaping. The drive aisle itself is 5.5 meters, so it is narrower than the required backup space inside the parking. We've got some stone cladding, heavy timbers over the recessed entry lobby, just pronounces it more to the street. You'll note the covered bike parking as well for the visitors, and the screening of the parking gate itself is done with a perforated metal screen rather than just typical aluminum. And that is the presentation. I'll just leave it at that. I do have the model available if there's any specific questions you want to see on the building itself.
Thank you. Okay, members of the committee, are there any questions to the applicant with respect to the presentation and any variances and that kind of thing? Yeah.
I just had a question about the overlook and to the townhouse on the right-hand side, and the number of windows and whether that's sort of rear activity space of the townhouses. What's happening between the two buildings?
So you're talking about the side yard here?
On the right, yeah, on the right-hand side.
So again, at grade, we do have parking as well as landscaping on the side yard. The balconies are frosted glass as well, so there is an extra level of privacy from the units looking out into the townhouse as well. And you'll also note that the roof line of the townhouse is neighboring, so there should be very little actual look down into those units, as well as into those rear yards as well.
And was there any advance to the owner of 9903?
This house?
Yes.
Yes, there was. So the developer did approach them to include that in the development.
No, that's really an unfortunate thing. That was my main concern with this development, is that we have created, the OCP says that this is an all DP7. And so now this is creating an orphan between and a narrow lot orphan between this and a recent new development at Breathour. And so the future development of that property is really restricted and certainly not to the extent of a 4-story building. So I just don't know.
Yeah. So we'll get back to that one in the discussion.
There's,
If I might, without actually having to do an exploration of this particular property, the size is a decent size, should be able to get something on it, as well as the being able to tie into the street behind. So there's an opportunity for this site to be tied to the site behind, and then a neighboring site to be part of a bigger development later down the road. It could be part of consolidation throughout the whole block.
follow-up question on that. I don't think the next one is that new development. What is in between there?
So there's the single family home.
Yeah.
Actually, we wanted to go back to the map.
Yeah, that would be great, because I'm just looking at the map here.
So.
It's, I believe it's a 4-plex.
Yeah.
That was the question, because there is that one house, it's an orphan lot now.
Right.
Yeah, no, like, there's another property between that.
Yes.
new
Yeah.
development.
It's not an orphan
Yeah,
lot.
it's
There's
a
a-
4 or 5 unit townhouse.
Yeah, is that an older one?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
it's been
it
there
is.
for a while.
It's early 70s vintage.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's, I mean, possibility to combine
Correct.
the two down their own.
It's not an orphan piece of
Okay,
property.
okay. Because this is a concern, like I 100% agree with you, I thought about that as well.
Can we state the discussion?
Yeah, okay, yeah, we question.
Mhm. Okay, anybody else? I have one question. You know, I have a concern at least about the variance required for the setback. The front setback, that's a 5-foot request. That's a fair amount. And one of my concerns again is that this doesn't concern you, but we dealt with variances to a site last APC meeting as well. And, you know, our bylaw is a brand new bylaw, and everything was set up, you know, to sort of fit the community and all of that. And first 2 applications we have for sites like this require variances or ask for variances. 5 feet is, you know, from the street when they're pretty close already. 5 feet is considerable, maybe not, but it's noticeable. So that's my concern.
Yeah,
Why that much? And at the back, you know, it seems niggly, but you know, it's 1.7 feet.
Yeah.
You know, that's because of design. That's not because the site's a problem.
Yeah, I don't disagree that it is design. So as noted in the staff reports, the design was completed prior to the bylaw being adopted. I believe the application was a week off. So the applicant, or I should say the client, made the choice to move forward. We did briefly look at compacting the building, but what we found was that the floor plates do suffer. The rooms suffer, everything gets compacted. So it's either a total loss of units to make the building shorter, or really just compacting the floor plates too much that the rooms become a little bit more unusable and less flexible for the new owners.
Okay.
Also, it should be noted that this building as well and that building as well are 4.5 meters. So we are trying to unify the streetscape along 7th. But I do understand the new bylaws in place and the reason behind it.
Okay.
So how far in advance so you're saying your design was completed prior to the adoption of the new zoning bylaws?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Thank you.
But it conformed to the old bylaw.
It did, yes.
Okay. No other comments? Okay, then we move to the discussion portion, and we'll go to round table. I had an email from Lucina, who's not here, and she requested that her comments be read out at the meeting, even though she cannot vote on them. But so I will read her comments into the record. And the first one, she says, the OCP has policies discouraging orphaned lots, point to Kenways. There is one single family lot to the north that is now isolated. Okay, she worries about how this can be redeveloped. The second issue is privacy concerns about the overlook to the south, and it's an issue that I have as well, because particularly the way the building is designed, it actually has the roof line going up, and it really does seem to tower over the buildings to the south. Anyway, at minimum, balcony should be opaque in accordance with design guidelines. The third, concern about variances and lack of open site space. And finally, her fourth concern is street presence. That street presence is lacking. So can add those to the record. And then we'll go around the table here and have other members make comments.
Did you specify about street presence?
No, she just said street presence is lacking.
Okay.
I'm reading her comments. She wanted that read into the record.
Okay. I would just want to hold it.
Well,
You know, I get. No,
I'm
get
reading
it,
what
but
she wrote.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, why don't we go around table? Why don't you start? Ken?
Sure. A comment was made by somebody else to me that they didn't like the design of the bike racks. that style of bike rack is not very user friendly. It was that came from Jamie Wellborn, the fellow with the pool noodle on his bike, who is a cycling advocate. Apparently, the post style are much nicer to use. Anyway, I said I'd mention that. Other than that, I think I like the look of the building. On the variances, the exterior cladding one is kind of a nothing thing, so that's easy. The front and rear setbacks, the rear is the variance for the rear is kind of negligible, as is the one for the front, because those townhouses that they built next door already stick out further than that from what it looks like driving past and what it looks like in the drawing. So it's, in another area, it might be a bigger deal, but here it's kind of faced up. I guess it does sort of maybe slightly affect the property on the other side, but they had the option to join, and they made their decision, so it wasn't really completely forced upon them. And on the 3-bedroom requirements, I totally get where it's way easier to stack them all on top of each other. Part of me wondered whether or not it was more profitable to do the top floor in all 1-bedroom units, other than the whole layout. There isn't a way that it easily happens. But I figured old rich people are probably the ones who are buying the sort of penthouse kind of units, and if you
never
could
say that.
what?
Stereotyping.
Yes. Yes. Which, you might be able, if you could get the price, if you could fill the top floor with 1-bedroom luxury units that you could sell at a premium, maybe you could then get, end up having to build one less unit and buy one less fridge and stove and all that and make more money. And then that in itself might solve that little parking issue, which I don't have a problem with the parking issues. So as far as the variances and stuff, in this instance, I don't think any of them are a big issue, in my opinion. And
Okay,
that's it.
okay, Harold?
My first reaction was that there's a lot of variances to be asking for in one application. Now that I know the background, that it had been designed before the change of the bylaws, and I can understand where they're coming from. I still think the variances can probably be dealt with in one way or another to make them less, to have less impact and reduce the numbers by going from a less generous design and less maximizing the square footage and everything. And So I think a revisiting of the design might be in order.
Okay. Eric?
Yeah, I don't have any real issues with the design. I mean, the parking is a function of the town's requirements. And so because the town has made those, you know, somewhat arbitrary requirements for parking, the developer is just trying to conform to that, which is fair enough. I mean, you could make the parking take up less of the space by digging a big deep hole, but that you know, as we get into flood area concerns then, and we also get into the financial implications of that, which are going to be terrible. You know, they're kind of forced to put the parking where they've put it. So I don't really have any issues with that. So yeah, no, I'm generally supportive of this development. Houses like this are required in our area. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
Andrew?
I don't have any issues with the development either. Site specific to the setbacks, because it was designed just shy of new zoning requirements coming into place, I don't see it being a problem, given that they still have kept it relative to the existing streetscape. They're not asking for something beyond what already exists in new developments. The neighboring property is not orphaned. You can guarantee those people will make money on when the townhouse development project comes into play, and it will. I'm in support of it. I don't think there's a problem with the variances that they're requesting.
Okay. Eric, go ahead.
Alex, nice to meet you.
Alex, hi.
Alex?
So you don't see an issue with the open lots?
No, because it's not orphaned.
Because
There's a townhouse development. You can say that about the townhouse development.
Yeah, okay.
Which will come up for development
Because
for sure.
it did cross my mind. So, you know, hearing this kind of gives me a little bit more comfort in this.
If the developer, if the owner of the townhouse development 2 over develops it and that single lot says no,
that's the problem.
Then there's where the problem lies.
Okay, so I would agree with Eric that this is much needed in that area, and it's consistent with what's happening. So I like the proposal, and I like how it looks. I'm not a huge fan of that entry, and it's just a personal opinion. I think, you know, maybe we can just do the garage door in this style, and then the part to the left do something else. But again, it's just my personal preference. I'm not. Everybody has a different taste in this. But in terms of variances, my biggest concern would be the rear setback. I think it could be avoided, but just because it was designed before the new bylaws, I would be okay with that. The frontage, to me, is fine, especially with the fact that it's facing the field. As it's mentioned in the document, it doesn't really affect the look and feel, and it is consistent with other properties in the area. So yeah, to me, the biggest was that property to the north, but hearing the opinions about the next property development, potential development opportunity, I'm happy with this. I think it's a great proposal. I'm in generally in support.
Kim?
Can I just add something to what Alex.
Yeah.
It's Alex.
Yeah, I'm just saying with respect to the front entry. Typically, darker colors tend to look more towering and ominous than lighter colors, taller buildings. The right side of this development could be easily muted with just color and textural changes.
I'm talking about this,
Yeah.
like this part, right?
Oh, okay.
Like,
I'm sorry.
So when you like, I think it makes it bigger and darker.
Right.
So if you make the entrance as is, but this little part to the left, you make something else.
A different color
A
block.
different colored block.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion.
Okay. Kim?
I'd support what Alex was mentioning too, in trying to improve the presence of the entry. I take comfort in the architect's description of the enclosure of the garage entry as being something other than like a pressed steel rather than the pickets that are shown in the drawing. I think that black picket approach to the entry of the garage is very poor. Could be well improved. I'm still concerned about the orphan of the lot next door, 9917. If 9923 are all individually owned rather than rented townhouses, the potential for inclusion of 9923 for 9903 is that much more difficult, but I think that it's very difficult for us to impose the inclusion of 9903 if they have specifically said no to being included into this proposal. So I'm also I also appreciate that the design was made prior to the application, prior to the new zoning bylaw, and that the setbacks that are being asked are equal to what the old bylaw allowed. So I think that there is needs to be some consideration for transition to the new bylaw rather than a hard and fast provision or application to that, and that it is consistent with the setbacks of adjacent properties. So I'm willing to accept that. I also support Andrew's. The one concern I have with this design is that there's no accommodation for families in the three bedroom units in terms of any amenity on the site. And I don't know what amenity, since it's adjacent to the school grounds, there's lots of amenities there. But I do believe that there should be some provision for on-site play by young children.
Okay. Brittany.
Yeah, I'll just echo, and just before I do make my comments, I just wanted to ask a question of staff or just make an observation. There was a new rental building built on 5th Street some time ago. It's towards the end of 5th near
Malibu.
The
Oslo.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Minto. I just wanted to ask about bicycle parking, actually, or raise an issue about bicycle parking, because I know in that development bicycle parking was provided and all of that stuff. When you walk by the Oslo, it's like there are 20 bikes outside the front door. like where the little bike rack is that's supposed to be for visitors. This causes me to suspect that perhaps it is not free to park your bicycle in the underground bicycle parking, because it looks like all of the bicycles are outside. So I just want to raise this for the future and for the zoning bylaw, the bicycle parking bylaw, or whatever, because it looks like something's gone astray there. Everybody's got their bike outside, which has nothing to do with this, but sorry, I have bike parking on my thing here. I just wanted to echo the same concerns that we've already heard. I was concerned about these variances in the front and the rear yard, because when you put them all together, you're talking about 2 additional meters in building length. And when you look at the shadows and everything that will be created in the neighborhood, that is quite a bit extra. I did not understand that the design had started prior to the adoption of the new OCP and zoning bylaw. I would still, I'm concerned that we're already doing variances with the new OCP and that nobody is really meeting the new requirements. And I'm concerned because that ends up just being a slippery slope where suddenly in the APC, everybody's going, oh yeah, but we accepted 4.5 meters as a front yard setback for the last 3 projects. And I really think where we want to start is with the minimums, which are more than that. In this case, because the design took place previously, I can certainly support the front yard setback. The rear yard setback, I would really also like to see that somehow there could be some rejigging of the building, that wouldn't be required, because the rear yard setbacks really start to impact on the actual neighbors. The front yard setback, not so much. The fact that they're stacking all the 3-bedroom units, I have no issues with that. But I hear what Lucina was saying, and certainly what we've said on other multifamily sites, that there should be some general amenity space for people who live in the building. And because of all of the parking and the smallness of the lot, there is no amenity area. So I would like to see some improvement there. And I am also concerned about the orphan lot and whether that might just get lost, and how much of a discussion there was and whether that could be reopened and we could, as a result, get maybe more units into this development, some better amenity space, and so on.
Okay. My own comments, I agree with that latter comment. I am concerned about I do think it's an orphan lot because townhouses aren't going to be redeveloped anytime soon. They may eventually, but nonetheless, we've had this before. We had the rise on 5th, which is now was 2 lots, and there was that orphan lot, and that went to 3. And then at 5th and Mallaview as well, just beside the building you were talking about, there was that orphan house, and they did manage to come up with development. And I would say both of those developments look much better because of that, obviously. So I don't support this proposal because of the fact that we're leaving this lot here. I also I can understand that some of this the issue with the setbacks because of the earlier design, but that zoning bylaw was passed 4 or 5 months ago, and so it's not as if this is news in the last little while. This could have come with a different presentation. Having said that, I'm not going to play hardball with that, but I do worry about the fact that every time a proposal comes, there are these little setbacks that become a slippery slope, perhaps, who knows? It's the choice of council. Anyway, those are my comments. There've been a lot of good comments that I generally support. The building looks reasonable and so forth. Okay? So, yes.
I just had a quick question for
Yeah.
staff in regards to boathouse comments about variances. If there were no variances required, things wouldn't be getting sent to APC, right?
They still would because it
Would they?
would require a development permit.
Oh, okay.
So they would
But-
be under the design guidelines.
Oh, okay. Generally speaking, though, a lot of the stuff that gets sent to APC is sent here because it's got a bunch of variances, though.
It gets sent to APC to do a thorough review of
Yeah.
the design guidelines. Not necessarily. There's some applications that do have variance requests.
Yeah.
Recently,
Oh,
there
okay.
have been quite a few that have a variance attached.
Okay. I was just thinking like, if they only got sent here when they had variances, then of course we're gonna see variances, but
It's a shorter discussion.
yeah.
Yeah, all development permit applications do go to the APC.
Mhm.
And so this just is an added layer when they want variances as well. Okay,
Thank you.
yes,
Can I ask a question of you?
sure.
You had mentioned a couple of projects where either council or APC pushed back on the developer,
Right,
where there was an orphan lot.
right.
And ultimately the developer came back with a proposal that included that lot.
Yes,
So that has been done in the past and it's been successful.
yes.
Circumstantially, by my recollection, and Allison may correct me if I'm wrong, there was a similar discussion. In each case, developers had tried to procure those neighboring lots. And I don't recall any project being denied or not moving forward, but that in both instances that were referred to, the developer came back with a revised proposal. So I think it was just circumstantial that they were able to revisit the sellers or the property owners in both those cases and have a successful negotiation. One was part of the
That's my
state,
recollection too. I can't recall council making a resolution for either of those sites that they must acquire the third property.
I don't know that they could
But-
either, but
No,
Yeah.
you couldn't require that.
No.
But in the case the APC didn't support it because of that. And so
I'd have to check back in the minutes.
I
from
not
just to
just,
see.
the one on Malibu was turned down, I think. I'm not sure about the rise.
I don't think it was turned down. I think it was definitely
It was a
recommended.
recommendation.
yeah, it was.
But I don't,
Eventually, the first time, that came to us twice. The first time the APC said no to it. The second time it was approved by the APC.
I think there were
And then the
more
second time it
reasons.
had the orphan lot
Yeah,
added to it.
they did. Yeah, I recall that one, but I think there were more reasons for,
Yes, there were.
there were multiple issues with that.
True.
What quantifies an orphan lot?
Yeah, exactly. This one isn't orphaned. Both of those lots, the single family home and the townhouse development, are not currently at their highest and best use. Given the new zoning, both can be up for redevelopment. And it will happen.
Well,
Andrew, are you aware, the town housing project that is, to the north?
Yeah.
Is that a strata development
Yeah.
or is it a single owner?
You know, it's a
Because-
single owner, because I know somebody that rents in there.
Okay. That makes it.
Because if it's a strata development, I think the likelihood of those two ever being combined together is low.
Yeah, I know somebody that rents in there.
that'd be tough. Anyway,
The previous presenter, Mr.
Okay.
Patello, could probably fit like 18 units in there.
we have motions to deal with. Okay. So, where are we here? Trying to get myself organized here. Okay, would you like to read the first motion, first recommendation?
Recommendation number 1, that owners and tenants in occupation of property within 75 meters or 246 feet of 9895 and 9899 7th Street be notified regarding development variance permit application number DB 100360 to relax the distance exterior cladding is permitted to project into a required setback, the maximum percentage of a first story occupied by the parking area, the location of the required 3-bedroom units, and the minimum front and rear yard setbacks, and that any written correspondence received be forwarded to council at the time of consideration of approval of the variance. Would you like me to?
Okay, anyone would like to move that? Okay, Todd, seconder, Andrew?
Can I ask-
Okay, that's the motion. Now we have discussion on the motion.
I just wanted to ask a question. If we wanted to amend some of these other things to it, like improving the front entry, the look of the front entry, and further exploring the amenity space, would this be the place?
I would do it under
Yeah.
3. No.
In terms of conditions of approval of the development permit, that's what you're.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'd be the place to do it. Okay, any discussion on this recommendation for the variances? I know some people have some questions about the variances. Any? Okay, no discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. The second recommendation.
Recommendation number 2, that development permit application number DP 100848 to permit the form and character of a 4-story 21-unit multi-unit building for the property at 9895 and 9899 7th Street be brought before council for consideration of approval if council authorizes the issuance of the development variance permit.
Okay, a mover. Could I have a mover for that motion? Alex, Andrew second.
Yeah.
Discussion. Any discussion?
Is this where we would encourage the proponent to revisit the adjacent plot? In terms of incorporating it into development? Because that's all that we can do, isn't it?
That's all you can do, and we could do it in the record of decision. I'm not sure. Well, you could make a motion to make an amendment.
I think we would acknowledge it can't be a condition. I mean, go where you want to go with it, but the record of decision, I think, would probably be the most appropriate place.
A motion to encourage is not really a motion, because then you're just, it's a suggestion.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Number 3.
Recommendation number 3, that as conditions of approval of development permit application number DP 100848, the property owner shall, prior to the issuance of building permit, A, register a flood hazard covenant on the title of the property referencing the submitted engineer's report, and B, pay to the town a deposit in the amount of 115% of the estimated cost to complete the hard and soft landscaping for the development.
Okay, the mover, Andrew, Todd, seconder. Discussion.
May I make an amendment to the?
You may move an amendment.
I would move the amendment to incorporate tenant amenity space. Or, owner occupant amenity spaces.
Occupant, to incorporate occupant amenity. Incorporate
C,
occupant
D.
amenity space.
Yes.
And you're talking
That'd be
about
C.
outdoor space.
Outdoor amenity space.
Right.
Outdoor occupant amenity space.
And D, improvements to the form and character of the street entrance.
Okay, so the motion is to add these 2 points to number 3. And so just to read them again, to incorporate outdoor occupant amenity space and make improvements to the form and character of the street entry. Okay, that's the motion. Is there a seconder?
I'll second that.
Bernadine? Okay, discussion on the amendment.
What kind of amenity space?
It's up to the developer and the staff to determine what amenity spaces.
Like, but I'm just trying to understand the spirit, like a
Well, it would,
like a gym or a.
no, an outdoor
just
space,
outdoor.
so it's an
Okay.
activity space for what I would presume would be both sitting, potentially garden space for activity, and or for family activities such as a barbecue space that could be utilized, or some game space.
So some sort of hardscaping type stuff in this perimeter area.
Eric?
Does it have to be inside? I know the motion is for exterior amenity space, but does it have to be exterior amenity space? Currently, the development exceeds its parking requirements. They could do a combination of interior and exterior amenity space, since this is a part of the world that where it rains a lot.
I thought that there was 22 parking stalls and the bylaw required 22. 21 parking stalls and the bylaw requires 21.
No, there's 22 by law question.
One extra.
One extra.
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, you could have a basketball hoop on the 22nd parking
Okay,
stall.
I think this is, we're not working out the details here. We're just looking at having that space available.
I think with a, elementary school field across the street, it's not critical, in my opinion.
That's, okay, so you don't support it. Let's have a vote on the amendment.
Well, are we voting on both C and D? Or
Yes,
are we-
it's on the amendment, C and D.
So all together, not separately.
You
See,
can
and
ask
D
them to
together.
be separate.
I would like them to be separate.
Okay,
So vote on C
the
first.
motion to separate them, then let's vote on the amendment C to incorporate outdoor occupant amenity space. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Motion is defeated
Excuse me, Clarence.
because it's
Oh, is it
tied.
Excuse me. I can't see everyone.
Okay,
So
those in favor?
Yeah.
Those opposed? And Eric
So-
is opposed as well.
Todd, Alex.
And
Andrew,
tied
and
motion
Derek are
means
opposed.
it's defeated. So that motion does not. So scrap C and D, make improvements to form and character of street entry. We'll vote on that. All in favor? Opposed? Carries unanimously. Okay, so now we go to number 3 amended. So it's 3 as we have it in the staff recommendations, plus make D improvements to form and character of street entry. We could change that to C
It
actually.
makes,
Yeah.
it becomes,
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, carries. And then finally, the last recommendation.
Recommendation number 4. That is a condition of approval of development variance permit application number DV 100243. The property owner shall, prior to the issuance of building permit, A, register a restrictive covenant on the title of the property prohibiting the future strata council from passing any bylaws that may restrict occupancy of the building based on age.
Okay, could I have a mover? Todd, Harold, seconder. Discussion. Don't think we need discussion on this, do we?
Can
Yes.
I make one, like, in the staff report, it says DB 100243, it should say DB 100360.
Oh, okay. Just to correct that. Yeah, okay. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, we have one last little item here with respect to this application. That's the record of decision.
You just wait until Ruth is ready to start taking the notes.
Yeah.
Get into it.
I know we're at 4 o'clock, so we're anxious to wrap this up.
1 minute of parking lot.
1 minute of parking. Okay,
While we're doing town's business, we're okay.
are we ready soon?
You just bring the ticket, bring the
Okay.
ticket to
Okay,
Alice and
the
your.
general, if I can capture this correctly, I think there was a support for the look of the building and the design. Questions were raised about the front and rear setback variances. But there was general support because the design had been made and the plans drawn up prior to the passing of the new bylaw. In other words, the old bylaw rules. There was discussion about the lot next door and the fact that some considered it to be an orphan lot, but that the lot would be isolated.
You said a lot to the north?
Yeah.
That was north?
A lot
Yeah,
to the north.
Can we say something like we would encourage the developer to pursue?
Yeah, I think we could add that. I don't think anybody disagrees. Encourage the developer to pursue purchase of that property.
That would be great. Might be unreasonable, but it would be great.
Yeah. Okay, let me see. Well, it's in the motion about the entry design and look. Concern about the entry design and look.
Was there anything specific there, Lil, that you want to mention in the record of decision? I know, Alex, you had some concerns with the garage door itself, coloring or.
Yeah, Kim, you
Sure. Well, the garage door and enclosure not be black picket.
I think it's white picket. I think the black is dark.
Okay, well, or
It's
white picket,
it's
but that
similar
it,
in color.
that it have some,
My suggestion was to that panel to the left, maybe do a different colored block instead of having all, but I mean,
all pickets.
yeah, all. But it's in recommendation, so we can, as a record of decision, we can just say that there were concerns about the look of the front end.
The look and the color.
Look and the color and material, I don't know.
Like
whatever.
of the underground parking spot?
Yeah. Like that entrance into the parkade.
Does it say what it actually is, just in case we're misinterpreting what we're looking at?
Like in this picture
Yeah.
here, yeah, I'm looking like gray picket.
Yeah, what I'm referring to is, like, I'm okay, like, personally, again, I'm not suggesting, I'm personally okay with that, but, yeah, as Andrew stating, this portion,
Just
The fixed.
the fixed portion, the screening.
Yeah, the
that is
fixed
next to the
portion.
Parquet
Yeah.
gate,
Yeah.
currently it's
I'm-
matching the parquet gate.
Yeah.
I think the recommendation.
Oh,
is
and
that
like a
it's-
contrast kind of thing?
yeah, my kind of feel and suggestion would be to make it a different color perhaps, or different material or something different, because right now it kind of makes a big black hole and I think we can do a little better with that, just personal feeling.
Would you say maybe make it more inviting looking?
Sure, sure.
Or are you talking like contrasting, like circles or triangles or something that contrast?
I mean, I don't wanna overcomplicate it. I know it's,
Okay.
it's, you know, cost and
Contrasting
time.
material and color for the parking.
Sure, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Even the parkade gate looks like it's a jail rather than.
There's not a lot of ways to build parkade gates.
Yeah.
Okay, are there any other issues besides that,
It's just,
Allison?
Is this what the committee would like to say for the last bullet point, or should we add any more wording here to capture the rest of it?
What does it say? I can't read it from
Says
here.
there are concerns on the look and color of the entrance to the parkade. Do you want to add any more to that, or does that catch it?
That makes it pretty good in general.
Yeah, I think.
yeah, do we wanna specify?
The designer's right there, so I think
Yeah.
he-
I think,
I think I know what you guys.
yeah.
Okay.
And the council representative is sitting
If you remember.
Make it eye friendly.
So that the
I
record
won't
is
go
in
with
that.
it. Come on.
Is there any other point here that would, that we'd like to catch with the record of decision that's not here? I see great enthusiasm to dig into the deep recesses of your mind to find some. Okay. Sounds good. Okay, so now we have, another item, which is, items disposition by council. Well, before I do that, I'd like to thank the proponent for sitting through 2 hours of, APC and, all the permutations. Thank you for your.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Rentoul.
Thank you, Chair. I guess I'll just start off by, acknowledging that as we get close to the end of the calendar year, there's often changes with respect to compositions on committees and commissions. I don't know that we'll be meeting in December at this point. There's not another referral.
We might have
To
one more
APC.
meeting this year.
There is one project coming forward, as I understand it, that may be referred, so it may come in December to APC. We'll see how that unfolds. But I will take this opportunity just to, again, thank everyone, and particularly those who are coming to, the duration. I think 6 years is the maximum of service concurrent on APC, and so there may be some, I know, reference was made today to one individual who's approaching that. So appreciation and thanks for your involvement over the years, and to the group as a whole, thank you for your participation. Another thing that tends to happen this time of year, we're midway through a council term, so that's 2 years. I know I've been a liaison to APC for 4 years, 3 years maybe, because Peter left late in his cycle, but there could very well be a transition in councillors and their liaison assignments. And if that's the case, then again, I'll use the opportunity to thank you. It's been a pleasure to get to know all of you, and appreciate your insights that are able to be included around council discussion tables. In terms of more traditional items to update you on, APC did deliberate on 2 separate projects. They were referred to somewhat earlier today when the same developer was here, the same applicant. So one was an 8-plex for 9667 5th Street. That DP and DDP were approved by council. I think in that one, stemming from APC's discussion and recommendation, these was the side lots variances that weren't permitted on that project, which council carried through. And that one was a little more contentious, I think, it was a 4-4 split vote. And that's what wasn't, the forming character overall wasn't supported, which was perhaps part of the rationale for the approach that the chair took today with trying to address items of that nature in the front end. The other project was the 4-plex at 2312 Orchard Avenue. And again, the DP and DVP were approved by council on that project, in keeping with the support from APC on that particular project. As Allison noted, there's likely one other development coming forward that it should be referred to APC. I would anticipate if it retains the schedule, so we may well meet again to discuss that prior to the end of the year. So I'll pause there. Allison, anything I should have touched on? Okay, Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Well, could I have a motion to adjourn? I think we're all ready to go. Tom. Seconder, no one wants to leave yet? Oh, Adam. All in favor of leaving? Okay, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you all.